All right, ready. This is the Ed Sullivan Show with Jerry Moss and Bud Gotteshart. He lies and I swear to it, right? I can tell you any number of stories. I can lie to you or tell you the truth. Which would you prefer? When I was in the Navy, I was the squadron guinea pig for seasick pills. And of course, every time they come out with a new seasick pill, they looked me up and gave it to me. I was aboard a destroyer, and a destroyer is about 200 feet long. And of course, they're like a tin can. That's what they're called, is tin cans. And when you hit the water and the waves, up and down, up and down. And so when I was a child, I got motion sickness. In the back seat of a car, I would throw up. If we went on a merry-go-round or something that had any movement to it, I would get seasick. Well, how would you like to be aboard the ship and no way of getting off, and then the cold winter waves, the salt spray is hitting in your face, the stack gas from the stacks is coming back, and it stinks like you've been in a city, and you get that diesel fuel smell. That's what seasickness is like.
And you're just stuck on the boat.
And you're stuck on the boat, you can't go anywhere, and you carry a bucket with you. And then flip, you've got to let it go. And one day we had roast veal for dinner. Real good, mashed potatoes, gravy, the whole bit. And of course, then after the meal, it got a little rough. And when it got rough, it started pitching back and forth, and I was heading for the head to throw up. And the fellow by the name of Delahunt was already across the head opening. The head is a men's room. And of course, there he was with his hands up. Oh, oh, oh. And I was holding my mouth like this so I wouldn't throw up on him, and I tried to get him out of the way. He didn't move. Well, when it flew out, it went right between my fingers, all over his back, and he was previously just going, oh, and he took one look at that, and woof, he got sick. So that's what it's like to be seasick. The Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, A&P, is like, what do you have today? You have Sheetz gas stations. Well, in those days, every town had an A&P. Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company is what A&P stood for. They sold tea, they sold coffee, they sold groceries. A&P, every town had an A&P. That's where you went to get your groceries. And I worked at Osceola, I worked in Winburn, worked in Brookfield, worked in Clearfield. I was like flowers, I worked all over. And I always enjoyed what I was doing, whether it was at A&P or whatever. And probably would have remained with A&P had they not put me on night shift. Couldn't sleep, it was too hot in the summer. I just up and quit. And they said, you can't quit, you got 13 years in. Well, I quit. When I was in high school, I had 5 part-time jobs. And in 1954, when I graduated from high school, I was driving a 1953 automobile, which I bought myself. Nobody bought it for me. I paid for my own insurance and everything else. Other kids, when they took their books home from school, I had mine in the car. I left them on the seat. I never had to study. I was never smart or intelligent, but I used common sense. I guess that was October 16th, 1955, when I went in the Navy. I went to Philadelphia Naval Base, and that was on a Sunday evening, and told Mother and Dad I'd see them in a couple years. And then Friday evening, I was home. And they thought I went over the hill. That is, absent without official leave. But I just happened to get there, and it was the Liberty section, and they said, there's no use hanging around here, you might as well go home. And I had a ride, and I went home. In those days, you could go almost anywhere on your thumb. Military personnel were picked up very quickly. Not like that today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Is that what you mean, that freedom? Well, not so much free, but very glad to get back in the United States and get on ground.
When was that?
After I was seasick. Yep. Got off the John R. Pierce in 1950, October would be 1956. It was in Little Creek, Virginia. And there I was on the amphibious base as a seaman guard. And other than that, freedom is something, Kathy, that until you lose it, you really don't appreciate it. Well, your mother and I, if that's the one you're in reference to, went to a flower show out in Pittsburgh. It was Good Friday. No. It was the Easter season, but I can't honestly recall if it was Good Friday or Easter Sunday. Maybe it was Easter Sunday. And she and me and Joey Petrozzani and one of her nurse friends went to the flower show. And we saw flowers, mostly Easter flowers. It was in a huge greenhouse out there. And that was our first date. No, it wasn't really. She chased me for years.
How did she do that?
She came to the A&P where I worked to buy coffee for her mother. And her mother had so much coffee she didn't know what to do with it all. So, and the only reason she married me was for my money. And for 48 years now, she's been looking for it and hasn't found it yet. Work isn't work unless you'd rather be doing something else. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I guess you could call success is when you get to the top of the ladder. And I've done that many times. And when I get to the top of the ladder, I look around and think, oh, there's got to be something more than this. And I go back down the ladder and start up something else. I always enjoyed working at the office and meeting people. And I had no trouble selling. I got 2 Crown Awards with Prudential selling. But that's neither here nor there. And I had 7 state licenses. But I don't have a college education. I sent my kids to college, not me. Well, my goodness. Patience is when you simply bid your time as to what you're going to do. And eventually it'll come about. Whether you're painting, whether you're fixing a car, whatever. It takes patience to do it. Just like with little Seda. You found out what patience is. And Corbin found out what patience was with you. Many a time he's bit his tongue, stuck his fingers in his ear. Whew, never had a hero. I guess my dad. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm ready to die any minute. When I walk through that gate, I'm looking for Dad and Mom. Because the Bible says that if you confess me before men, I'll confess you before my Father which is in heaven. And he said, I go to prepare a place for you so that where I am, there you too may be also. And then the Bible says, everybody's going to die except you and me, and I wonder about you and you wonder about me, right? The richest man that ever lived was a fellow called Solomon, and he died. And he says, man, he says, I built navies, I built armies, I built cities, I got 700 wives, so many concubines. He says, I've done it all. Whatever it is, I've done it all. And he says, it's all for nothing. He says, a live dog is better than a dead lion. We're running out of daylight, or else holy balls. Work. Work. You can spend all your time at the ball games or at the movies or running around doing nothing, but it gets you nowhere. What I have has not been handed to me, but rather through work. And there's a little quote that I had at one time. It said, thanks be to my parents who kept me from shirking my duty and taught me the pleasures and joy of working. And that's why I never had to go looking for a job. They always came to me. When I got my first job out of high school at AMP, Drumgold asked, because I would stop there on the way home from school and get a box of lettuce and carry it on my shoulder from Phillipsburg to Chester Hill to feed the rabbits. And so Drumgold one day says, what are you doing with all that lettuce you get here? I says, I have rabbits. He says, all you do? He says, do you sell them? I says, yeah. He says, well, do you kill them and then dress them and then sell them? I says, yeah, I can. He says, okay. He says, bring me one. So I brought him one. And then he asked me if I wanted a job. Two of them. One is behind you, the little manger scene that John made for us when he had no money. And the other was when my dad made me a little clay tunnel when he worked at the brickyard. And I got it one year for Christmas. And he made it with his hands. Enough said. We'll just start work at daylight and quit at dark. We used to go at Christmas time to see who could go the longest without opening their presents, and he was the same as me. So Dad, he remembers for Christmas when he was a kid, he got an orange. A orange. Not a ball bat, not a present, nothing. And if they wanted meat, they had to go dig groundhogs out of the holes and kill them, and that's the only meat they had. And during the Depression, they had to pick the bugs out of the flour before their mother could bake bread. That's how rough it was. And Mother, well, whew, she had it worse than what Dad did. Her dad was killed in the mines. Dad's dad was killed in the mines too. And so Mother's mother had to take in washings to keep the family together. They didn't have Social Security in those days. And I've got more cars than anyone ever should have, more houses, more properties. And here I is. But I hate waste, and I hate people that waste stuff. There's no reason for it. So technically I should have died in July of '08, but I didn't, so here I is. Squirt. Well, I'm too blessed to be stressed, is the name of a song, and yet I have been blessed with everything, and I feel guilty when I get presents. There's nothing I need. As it said, I've got everything but a parachute and a helicopter, and if I wanted them, I'd go buy them.